parts of the world. That should not dismay us, but in fact, it should be more of a motive and inspiration to work harder towards a world where conflicts are resolved by peaceful means, since in wars, especially modern wars, there is no winner. Everybody is a loser. It's inspiring to see such a diverse group gathered here, all with a shared interest in making our world a more peaceful place. Back in 2013, RI President Sakuji Tanaka talked about how serving others, even in small ways, can lead towards peace. Today, we're lucky to have our 2024 Rotary International President, Gordon McInally, here to talk about this year's theme, creating hope in the world. Let's hear what he has to say to us. So let's keep it real, open our minds, and listen up to Harmonizing Hearts and Hands. Thank you.
Having just had the privilege of sharing in a conference dedicated to peacebuilding in London, England, I am delighted to bring you my personal greetings at this event. I hope you can use your time together at the Harmonizing Hearts and Hands for Peace gathering as a launching point for action, because it is vital that we do far more than just simply talk about peace. These are times that cry out for peace. The Middle East is in its most volatile condition in 50 years. Europe is experiencing its most destructive war since the end of World War II, and there are many wars taking place throughout North and Central Africa. In fact, nearly every continent on Earth has a major armed conflict at this moment. Rotary has a vital role to play in advancing the cause of peace. And I often say that Rotary needs to work towards peace as aggressively as those do that wish to wage war. It's the same spirit found in the poems of Scotland's national poet Robert Burns. In the 18th century, Burns spoke of the world becoming brothers, sisters, promoting sense and worth over all the earth. And this spirit is apparent in our vision statement of Together We See a World Where People Unite and Take Action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. When it comes to lofty aspirations like these, we must never lose track of that last call, that to bring about change in the greater world, we also need to foster change within. It is up to each of us to model peace-building behaviour. We can do better than questioning the motives of one another, jumping to the harshest possible explanation, and making the largest possible threat. After hearing words that might strain or offend us, we have an opportunity to ask with compassion and curiosity the intent of those offending words. And then we have another opportunity to repair the breach before jumping in. If we wish to be a beacon to the world, let us start by being so to one another. Let's help each other find greater understanding and smooth over words that cause hurt and distrust. Let's stick to our principles, yes, but never doubt the sincerity of each other to end conflicts, not to inflame them. And let's remain loyal to the people closest to us, but also include each other in that circle of trust, appreciation, and understanding. We cannot solve all the world's problems in meetings like the one in London or the one you are attending today. But we can begin to understand and appreciate each other a little better and agree on the first brave, humble steps towards a more peaceful world. It is in times of greatest crisis and despair that we need empathy most of all. Empathy is the most powerful tool of peace, and it is vital if we are to take the first brave, humble steps to create hope in the world.
Thank you. Thank you, President. Yes, and now I'd like to introduce Dr. Ira Hafland, Nobel Peace Prize, a dedicated physician and influential voice in the movement for nuclear disarmament. Dr. Hafland has devoted his career to addressing the humanitarian and medical consequences of nuclear weapons. Dr. Hafland?
Thanks, Naveen. And thanks all of you for inviting me to be part of this gathering today. You know, President McKinley just gave a very important, I think, statement in which he said, it's not enough to talk, we need to take action. And Rotary is in a position to take action, and it needs to do that. I want to talk to you about nuclear war. We are all acutely aware of the struggles that are going on in Europe and Ukraine, in the Middle East, many other conflicts that he referred to. What I think we have trouble really putting our arms around is the fact that these struggles have, these wars and conflicts have the real potential to escalate to nuclear war. Experts are telling us we are closer to nuclear war than we have ever been. And those warnings were sounded at first in 2018, 6 years ago, before the invasion of Ukraine, before the current war in the Middle East, both of which have only made the situation that much more dangerous. It is very hard for us to accept this reality. We don't want to believe that this can happen. But not only can it happen, it is probably going to happen if we don't change the way we are acting in a very fundamental way and do it very quickly. I want to describe to you a little bit about what would be involved if we have a nuclear war, because even as we have forgotten the danger of nuclear war since the Cold War ended, the fact that this could happen, we've also tended to forget what the actual consequences of a nuclear war would be. Many of us have seen images of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Many of us have visited there. These are powerful reminders to us of the enormous power of nuclear weapons. But what we really need to understand is that Hiroshima and Nagasaki do not begin to prepare us for what is going to happen if nuclear weapons are used again today. If there's especially a big war between the United States and Russia, it's not going to be one or two small, by today's standards, Hiroshima-sized bombs on one or two cities. It's going to be many bombs on many cities, and most of those weapons will be anywhere from 6 to 50 times more powerful than the bombs which destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A study that was done some years ago suggested that in a large-scale war between the United States and Russia, which would also almost certainly involve most of the great cities in Canada and Europe as well, something between 100 and 300 million people would die in the first half hour. In addition, the entire economic infrastructure of all the countries involved in this war would be destroyed. The people who survived the initial attack would live in a world where there was no internet, no electric grid, no public health system, no food distribution system, no law and order. And in the months following the initial attack, the vast majority of people in all of these countries would also die from starvation, from epidemic disease, from radiation poisoning. And that's just the direct effects in the countries which fight the war. But the catastrophe would be global, because the fires caused by these nuclear weapons would loft enormous amounts of soot into the upper atmosphere, blocking out the sun, dropping temperatures across the entire planet, an average of 10 degrees centigrade. In the interior regions of North America and Eurasia, the temperatures would drop 25 to 30 degrees centigrade. We have not seen conditions on this planet that cold in 18,000 years, since the coldest moment of the last ice age. And under those conditions, all of the ecosystems that have evolved since the end of the ice age would collapse. The vast majority of the human race would starve to death. A study that was published just in the summer of 2022 showed that in the aftermath of a war between the United States and Russia, more than 5 billion people, more than 3/4 of humanity, would starve to death in the first 2 years. And the famine would continue beyond that, just the study only went out 2 years. That same study showed that even a much more limited nuclear war between India and Pakistan could cause up to 2 billion deaths worldwide in the first 2 years. Neither one of these would cause the extinction of our species necessarily. Either one of these scenarios would mean the end of civilization as we know it. No civilization in history has ever withstood a shock of this magnitude, and there is no reason to believe that the very fragile economic system that we all depend on would do any better. Now, what I have just described to you is not the plot of a grade B movie. This is the danger we face every day that we allow these weapons to continue to exist. We know of at least 6 instances when either the United States or Soviet Union, then Russia, prepared to launch its nuclear arsenal, actually began the process in the mistaken belief that it was under attack by the other side. On each of these instances, disaster was averted at the last minute by good chance, by good luck. And we have to understand that that is why we're alive today. It's not because we've known what we're doing, because we had wise leaders or sound military doctrine or perfect technology. It's because, as former U.S. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara once said, we lucked out. It was luck that prevented nuclear war. And the current policy of the nuclear weapon states, which is based on the indefinite retention of these weapons, is nothing more than a hope for continued good luck. That's a crazy basis for global security policy. We need to do better, and we can. People around the world are demanding that the 9 countries which have these weapons sit down and negotiate an arrangement amongst themselves for a verifiable, enforceable, time-bound agreement to get rid of these weapons once and for all, which is the only way we can guarantee that the horrible things that I have just described do not come to pass. Many individuals feel kind of hopeless in the face of this enormous danger. And it's understandable. It's a big threat, and any one of us is a small force. But we in Rotary don't act alone. We belong to this global network with over 1.3 million people, thousands of Rotary chapters all around the world. And we have the ability to have a huge impact on this situation. And we need to, with that ability comes a responsibility, as President McAnally said, to act. We have to do that. And we have the opportunity to. This year, there will be a resolution introduced into the Council on Resolutions, which calls on Rotary, and I want to just, excuse me for a second, because I want to read the short text to you directly. It calls on Rotary, be it resolved that Rotary International Board of Directors consider supporting the growing international call for the complete elimination of nuclear weapons reflected in the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and consider supporting the UN General Assembly resolutions endorsing that treaty, and consider calling on the 9 states that possess nuclear weapons to enter into urgent negotiations for a verifiable, enforceable agreement to jointly eliminate their nuclear arsenals according to an agreed-upon time frame. This resolution will be introduced. It has been voted on by a number of clubs around the world. And I want to ask that each and every one of you consider getting your club to introduce this resolution as well. There have been some in the past who have argued that it is not proper for Rotary to take a position like this, that it's too political. If you feel that way, I would urge you to reconsider that position. Former President Sheikh Mehta has urged us to do more to prevent nuclear war. Other groups like the International Committee of the Red Cross, which is absolutely foundationally based in nonpartisanship, in not being political, have championed the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons and have seen it as essential to their foundational core mission to do so. I think Rotary needs to do the same. This is not political in a partisan sense. We're talking about the survival of humanity. And I think that even as we champion the elimination of polio, which also involved a change in policy, we had to negotiate with some governments that were reluctant to join our campaign. We need to take a position on nuclear war as well. And I think we need to understand that the situation, it's not as though this is some remote danger, something that might happen in 10 or 15 or 20 years. We could have a nuclear war today or tomorrow or next year. We need to act with urgency. We need to add our voice in the hopes that we can head off this incredibly dangerous situation. So I would urge you all to discuss this with your clubs, discuss this in your districts. I hope that each and every one of you will get your club to introduce this resolution to the Council of Resolutions. I'm going to put my email address in the chat in a minute. If any of you are willing to take this step, please write to me and I'll forward the full text of the resolution to you. Sometime in the near future, it is possible that we will fail and there will be a nuclear war. And if that happens, if any of us happen to survive, we're going to have to face our children and our grandchildren. And they're not going to accept from us the excuse, Rotary didn't take action because we thought it might be too political. They're going to want to know why we did not save their world. So let's not have to face that situation at all. And if we do, let's be able to face it with a clear conscience that we did everything we possibly could to prevent that disaster from taking place. This is a very heavy message I've just given you. I am not personally a pessimistic person. I think that we can stop nuclear war. I think we can get rid of these weapons. But it's not going to happen by itself. We have got to take action. And thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk with you today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hafland. Harmonizing hearts and hands for peace. That's true what we are seeking. Renata?
Yes. Okay. So during the evening, we are going to have 3 major presentations from the students of the High School of St. Joan of Arc. And it's thanks to, under the direction of an amazing person, a teacher, Marisa Buffone, who presented and worked with the students for the 3 different presentations. Marisa Buffone is a teacher, not only that, but is also a writer, performer, and an artist director. So the first presentation is going to be a message from one of the students. Thank you. To introduce Nikki Scott, dedicated Rotarian since the year 2000. Nikki Scott is the Vice President for RI 2022-2023, passionate about strategy, leadership coaching, and motivating speaking. So her diverse career journey from KPMG to a mentor and CEO. To you, Nikki Scott.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikki Scott, and I was Vice President for Rotary International last year under Jennifer Jones. And it is an absolute thrill for me to be here with you today. Thank you so much to Naveen Yasser, the Peace Chair for District 7070, for inviting me to be part of this wonderful conference and forum, Harmonizing Hearts and Hands for Peace. I love the fact that the mission and goal of this event is to actually not just discuss peace, but to set clear goals to actually create lasting prosperity in the communities we serve. It, of course, is no mistake that Naveen picked this month. We actually met in Cairo, Egypt last year at another peace forum that was being hosted by the intercountry committees. And we struck up a chord, both having a shared passion for peace. And as I said, no coincidence then that we recently just experienced President Gordon McInally's Peace Conference in London. And I had the privilege of serving as MC for that event. So I had a front row seat to listen to the most incredible array of speakers. I learned so much really about the work we do all over the globe. And this event was being hosted in the International Maritime Organization building right on the banks of the River Thames in London. It is in fact the only United Nations building headquartered in London, England. So what a place, what a space to have those incredible conversations and drive home this wonderful theme of promoting and strengthening positive peace in order to create hope in the world. As President Gordon has already mentioned to you, he put a call to action to restore hope, to help the world heal from destructive conflicts, and in turn to help us achieve lasting change for ourselves. Goodness knows that's needed more now than ever. I learned so much about the art of disagreeing agreeably. I think in Rotary, we are united by our core values that transcend cultural, political, and religious divides and help us embrace all meanings of the word diversity. Just see one human to another. One of the most impactful speakers, and there were many, but for me was Steve Kilalea. Steve is a global philanthropist, and he actually laid the foundations as a sort of global think tank to create the Institute for Economics and Peace. And we actually have a partnership now with Rotary and the IEP that was created in 2017 to help us focus on the positive peace framework, which was actually designed by the IEP. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about that today, but what I love is the fact that it's a systemic thinking approach. And no one pillar of the positive peace can stand alone. Every single one has an interaction with each other. So well-functioning governments, sound business environments, acceptance of the rights of others, good relations between neighbors, local levels of corruption, equitable distribution of resources, and high levels of human capital. We have so much in common as Rotarians to be able to stand as part of our mission to create peace in the world and become peace activators. So the call to action from me to all of you today is to do what President Gordon is asking. Let's not just talk about peace, but let's take action. That is definitely the goal that Naveen is hoping to take away from, all of you will take away from today's forum. So why don't you look up the Positive Peace Academy hosted by the IEP, join the Academy. And what does that mean? It means you can take a 2-hour online course with 5 modules and quizzes and become a peace activator. Why does this exist? It's incredible. It's a tool and a resource to us, and it's completely free because the IEP is looking to provide world-class peace education to more than 1 million people globally. I want to be part of that movement. Why don't you be part of that movement? Let's become a global movement for positive peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for an awesome presentation. And now it's my pleasure to present with you, introduce Scott Martin. Scott is a Peace Fellow who is currently the global partner for RI service partners at Mediators Beyond Borders. So join me in listening to Scott Martin.
Well, thank you so much for the invite, Naveen, and thank you all. See so many faces who have become friends and certainly passionate peace builders. Before I get started, what I wanted to do is just sort of recognize how difficult it is to be a peace builder in the world right now. All of us asking ourselves, what does it mean? And some of us not asking, some of us saying, here's what it means, in a way that might actually be dividing us. And which ways are our passions and the things we're most passionate about actually keeping us from each other, keeping us from hearing each other. Something I know about everyone on this call is that you care about peace. What would it look like if within Rotary we spent all of our time connecting our efforts instead of blaming or isolating, as President Gordon mentioned? What does it look like to be connected to one another? And so I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about that and how Mediators Beyond Borders as a service partner can act as that connecting fabric. There's a use for a mediator. And that mediator is someone from the outside who can help. And the first thing I want to do is say thank you to all of you. So I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow. In one way or another, you've all contributed to my career as a Peace Fellow and provided amazing opportunities for me to practice that art with all of you and in partnership with all of you. So Mediators Beyond Borders, it's a kind of a funny name because we don't actually do mediation in the world. What we are is mediators who go beyond borders internationally. What do I mean by borders? I mean borders not in the political sense. Of course, we do work internationally, so it does span borders. But I also mean in the way we think about the world. I mean, in a way that is expansive in how we approach things. As Ira mentioned, is the problems we have today are not going to stay within borders. If there's a nuclear war, the fallout from those weapons are not going to say, oh, you know what, I'm coming up against a border, let me stop. No, it's going to go beyond borders. Our environmental impacts are going to be beyond borders. Certainly our refugee crises are going beyond borders. So also borders of how we love each other and how we've traditionally built relationships need to be questioned so we can go beyond how we've currently thought and connected with one another. So today we're going to talk a little bit about those tools and a little bit about where the network of Rotary International and Mediators Beyond Borders can connect. And no matter where you are working in the world, in your service projects, there are mediators who can be able to help you with this kind of expansive way of thinking and connecting with one another. Here are some of the values that we use to guide the work we do. You'll recognize some of these. Ubuntu, innovación, innovation, creativity. Sangha, that we're better and stronger as a community together. And making sure that those at the heart of conflict are the ones who are empowered to change it. Not us from the outside, but those who are there have those skills. So working with local Rotary clubs who are in these regions to make sure we're better able to help those impacted by the work we do. And so some very practical ways in which we work with Rotary. So global grants, and we'll go through some of those, but very quickly because it's not what I want to talk about today. We're partners in peace in the infrastructure and structure of Rotary, and how do we build within kind of an entrepreneurial approach to peace building, peace through education, and we'll talk a little bit about the work we do there. And then the most exciting one is how can we expand the experiences and engagement of Rotary. So women in peace building is one of our focuses, and we've done several global grants throughout the years to this effect. Also working as collaborative partners in Bolivia, South Africa, and in these expansive projects that we're able to do and be able to track what does that impact look like. The last one we just did in Southern Africa, we trained Rotarians alongside of non-Rotarians. Rotarians, of course, have to pay their own way, but what it did when Rotarians and non-Rotarians do trainings together, we've now connected the networks. So as they go back out to do their work in the world, you have Rotarian clubs who can then support them with the work they do. And what we found is that creates an even higher multiplier effect and impact. We've also been able to take some of these projects that we've designed in the continent and work with Makerere University, which is focused on peace builders and leaders on the continent learning from one another. And so we've been able to take that program in Makerere. At the same time, we were able to expand that and work with the Ugandan police force and the prison service. So the same type of education that the Peace Fellows are getting at Makerere, now we're able to include the police force and the prison service. And who I have helping me on that are those who have been trained by the previous global grants. And so we're able to keep a cycle of those who we've trained who become then trainers and coaches to be doing this work throughout the region. Program expansion. How can we help where your ideas are, develop them further? So one of those I want to talk about is the Rotary Peace Fellow Global Peace Conference. And we've done that several times now. So they've put on 3 of them. And every year we have between 1,500 and 2,000 attendees. We have but 200 speakers a year. But one of the notes that I think is really important is we bring together over 300 different NGOs in doing so, because the investment you've made in the Peace Fellows, they don't just work with Rotary. They work with all these NGOs that might not come otherwise, but because we have events with Peace Fellows, they come and participate. And so we have all these different voices who are able to participate. If you haven't, keep a lookout for the next one. It's a 24-hour event so that we have live programming. No matter where someone's working at the heart of conflict, we can hear those voices and they don't have to wake up at 2 in the morning in order to participate in an event that we've put on. And so this was something that, as designers of processes, MBBI was able to work with the Peace Fellows and the Alumni Association to develop this. Another one we did was working with District 5040, also in Canada. And they wanted to involve the Nisga'a Nation in their conference. And so what we did is we worked with the Nisga'a Nation and trained members of their community alongside of their elders. And so that they learned facilitation skills and then taught us facilitation skills. Coming from the outside, I have no business telling an indigenous person how to do facilitation. However, at the same time, you guys might have heard of this pandemic. It was the COVID-19 or something. I'm not sure if you read the papers, but it was very impactful and people couldn't meet together. And so all of a sudden we did have something we could share because this community was used to meeting in person. How do you build community online? And so Rotary had now something to offer them because we've been doing it and we're good at doing it. And so we were able to learn together how to build community online. Now, the learning goes the other way too. And when I was talking to one of the elders about the skills of listening, and this is going to bring us now into where we are now in the world. And the elder said to me, well, Martin, this isn't just a really good suggestion for us. This is a law. And the law says, and I'll read it out loud to you, Dim huhulen kem guden silgaden. And that says, you need to be careful to listen with a compassionate heart. And the second part of that is to be careful not to hurt the heart of others, which is great advice, but why is it a law to the Nisga'a Nation? When I think about the brain science of that, and what do these words mean from a scientific standpoint, what happens to our brains when we're offended? When we're watching what's going on in the world and we identify with one side or the other, what occurs in our brains? Well, it closes off. When we're scared, we feel threatened, we start doing binary thinking, we start remembering all the threats in our environment, and we can't remember any of the positive things. And so if you think about it, if you're a narrative culture and only thing I can remember is the negative things, well, then my culture goes away. So we establish laws that ensure that our culture will continue to exist. Why is that important for those of us on the call? Well, as soon as we feel threatened, we stop forgetting the positive things about each other. And you can think about political parties, or you can think about the current wars going on. If you happen to be from one side or the other, you couldn't tell someone, even if someone's been working for public service for 20, 30 years, you can't name one positive thing that they have done. And so what we see in our own societies is the fabric of our own societies have begun to go away. So how do we reverse that? What do we do to open back up our hearts, to listen more compassionately with one another, to bring back diversity of thought, to go beyond how we've learned in the past to hear each other and hear with more compassionate hearts and careful not to hurt the heart of others? Do I have a few more minutes? So
Just a few.
Just a few. So we had an opportunity recently with a peace conference, and Naveen, you were actually with us for, and it happened to be scheduled right after the expansion of the war between Israel and Hamas. And there were thoughts about canceling it. And there was several thousand people who had left Rotary at that point in protest for the handling and what they perceived of how Rotary was doing with this conflict. And we said, well, instead of avoiding, instead of canceling it, if we can't talk about this as peace builders, who can? We can't come together as Rotarians. who can. And so we redesigned within the weeks ahead of time, a new process to be inclusive. Brought in the Red Crescent, who you're going to hear from today, brought in these ideas, and instead of avoiding it, we spoke about it. And we did mapping, and we brought people together to talk about what's possible. What are the challenges you see? And at one point, we're having all these discussions, and they're at the tables, and this one woman's sitting there defiantly. And I walked over to her and I said, "What's going on?" She says, "Nothing we talk about today is going to make a big difference, and make any difference at all to the war." And I said, "I agree with you. But is our goal here right now to end the war or reconnect Rotarians to their purpose and to each other? Do you see what's happening right now in the room? People who were scared to come together, coming together, discussing difficult topics and working through it to create a plan. And that is something we can do. Re-energize each other for what the foundation of Rotary can do in the world. And so I want to leave you with that and ask you what you can do to reconnect Rotary, reconnect to why you became Rotarian in the first place, and what can we possibly achieve if we think about how to listen with compassionate hearts and be careful not to hurt the heart of others and tell the positive stories about each other and rebuild the fabric of our societies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. It's lovely. And as we say, harmonizing our hearts and hands for peace. Renata.
So I will introduce you now Anne Soljic from Rondine Cittadella della Pace. She's directly in Italy right now, and she's going to talk to us about the program that they offer in Rondine. Anne, to you.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening. Good afternoon to everyone. Here is a bit late, but it's really an honor to talk to all of you. Renata, thank you so much for the invitation and for the opportunity to introduce Rondine to all of the Rotarians who actually do not know what our work is. Before starting the presentation, I would just like to say that while explaining what Rondine is and what Rondine does and who are the students, actually young people that are part of Rondine, I think that it will become very evident to everyone that Rondine is a place and is actually an answer to all of the calls of let's do something specific for the peace in the sense of changing the world for the better place, for the better. And I strongly believe, not just as a part of Rondine staff, but also as a former student, that Rondine is the place where leaders of tomorrow are being created, and leaders that will take the world and take the lead and help all of us survive, not just through sheer luck, like Mr. Ira Helfand mentioned, but actually through joint decision to choose peace and to work on peace. Having said that, may I please get the next slide? And the one after that. So having said that, I would like to introduce you to Rondine's mission, which is to promote the creative transformation of conflict through the experiences of young people who discover the human being in their enemy. This means that Rondine, since 1998, is working with young people who are coming from conflict or post-conflict countries, bringing them together to Italy to work, study, and live together and learn more about conflict transformation and conflict resolution and management. The young people that are coming to Rondine, as I have already mentioned, are coming from conflict or post-conflict countries. And throughout these more than 25 years, we've had students coming from three regions that since 90s have been more or less involved in certain types of conflict. So Balkans, Russia, and South and North Caucasus as well, and Middle East. Throughout the years, we've also had students and participants from other parts of the world to a certain extent. These three areas are the parts that are mostly represented. What does it mean through the experiences of young people who discover the human being in their enemy? We are giving young people a chance to, as I have said already, live together and study together the conflict in hand. So we have couples, meaning young people representatives either side of the conflict. When we are talking about current issues, we would have representatives and students coming from Russia and Ukraine as well to work on the issues that they are going through currently: Palestine and Israel, Bosnia and Serbia, Serbia and Kosovo, and so on and so forth. And these young people are firstly learning about all types of conflicts, starting from solving the conflicts that they might have with themselves, then moving on to interpersonal conflicts, and of course working towards the end of their experiences on a higher level of conflict, meaning the national conflict, and discussion on what to do there and how to change it. The purpose and why Rondine is doing all of this is exactly so that the world that my generation and the generation of all of the other young people will inherit at some point would be a world where we would be able to solve our possible differences in a peaceful way, and where we would be able to understand one another as leaders in either sense of that world, and from either field, not just political. So we would be able to understand one another, understand our point of view, and as Mr. Martin mentioned.
Something else now? Is it over? No, it's not. What are you doing? I'm locked out here. Why are you touching your thing? Hey? Why are you doing?
Sorry, can we mute, please? Mute.
Don't know what's.
Sorry about that, Anne. Thank
It's
you.
okay.
Thank
So
you.
as I was saying, so that these young people, when they become leaders.
Well, because that's how you.
Sorry.
As I was saying, so that these young people can, once they become leaders, once they get more power in decision making, the decisions that eventually they would make would be to move the world in a better and more peaceful direction. May I please the next slide? And the one after that. One more. One more. Okay. Thank you, Bob. The way that all of this is done in Rondine is through 4 parts, let's say, of the program. So Rondine educational program lasts 2 years, and these group of people that I have already mentioned come there to study all of this, to be very engaged in discussions, in panels, because they are true beacons and true believers in not just peace, but also in the future, in a brighter future, without the discussions and without the possibility of nuclear war or any other type of war. The 4 areas that their life, let's say, once they're in Rondine, is divided is firstly daily life, then the training program, civic engagement, and formal education. The daily life consists of all students living and sharing common spaces together, which brings them to an equal level, because they do have certain obligations to do in the places where they live. And actually, this serves also on a psychological level to make sure that all of the students have, let's say, an equal starting point. Even though, and this is very important to mention, the official language of the organization is Italian, and students learn the Italian when they come there for two specific reasons. The first one is when students come to Italy and to Rondine, they do, of course, speak English and are able to follow different trainings and even university lessons in English. However, the levels of English are different from student to student, and we do not want any inequality. So to kind of put them on the same level, we have students starting learning Italian from zero, and then having them also connect on that level, having them see more similarities that they have as individuals, in order to later on be able to discuss more complex issues and maybe something that they have learned that is divisive between them. Rondine training consists of topics related to communication, related to conflict, related to leadership, and related to project design and civic engagement. Additionally, the civic engagement is part of, let's say, volunteering experience that students have in either local organizations in Italy or some offices of certain international organizations. I know that throughout the years of Rondine's existence, we have worked quite closely with Rotary clubs in Italy on different projects and different programs, and that has been very useful for the students. And we are very much looking forward to continuing this partnership also on international level. And the last part, let's say fourth part of the Rondine program for international students is the formal education, meaning that students also get a chance to finish their master's degree during the 2-year stay in and being the part of this program. Next slide, please.
Thanks.
As I have mentioned, daily life and community life is integral part of it, because it is enriching and challenging as well, since all of them are coming from first different traditions and families, but as I have also mentioned, from conflicting countries. So learning to cohabit and learning to see the enemy every day can be quite challenging, especially having in mind that many of the conflicts are ongoing or have just recently started. So seeing the other part can be quite challenging. However, through other training that I have mentioned, through work together and through community lives, the students learn how to manage possible challenges. And there have been more than one instance where students were helping one another kind of go through the crisis that one might have in life, whether related to, again, as I have start of maybe possible conflict, like there was a case in 2016 between Armenia and Azerbaijan, or again in 2020 between the same two countries, or currently now between Palestine and Israel, and Russia and Ukraine in 2001. The students, and the reason why Rondine exists is to make sure that they later on through their work pass on this information and teach their communities and the rest of the world how to, let's say, communicate, and how to recognize first the person, and how to not just ignore the conflict or ignore the differences, but how to manage the differences that that we have. Next slide. Yeah, these are the training programs divided into 6 modules that I have already mentioned: conflict communication, interiority, active citizenship, and leadership and project design. Next. civic engagements. The activity, and this is something that I also would like to very much underline, is the activities the students are undertaking during their stay at Rondine is expanding beyond the already mentioned volunteering in organizations, because Rondine as a place has a lot of visitors, whether organized or unorganized, from Italian schools, universities, institutions, and governmental or non-governmental organizations, but also from the world. Just in October and November of last year, we've had a group of Rotarians from Arezzo coming to visit, and our students were able to communicate with them. And this again brings me to the point that Mr. Martin mentioned of joining together, coming together, and discussing things, maybe hoping that our discussions would bring some kind of change and stop the conflict, or stop the issues that we have in the world, but also just primarily for giving space to each other to discuss, to give space, safe space to discuss what is happening and to express our grievances. Next. Last but not least, the formal education, which is for us very important. Throughout my presentation, I have mentioned that the young people at Rondine has, we are hoping are and will become leaders, not just political leaders, but leaders in different fields in the future. That's why the part of formal education, when it comes to, and when we are talking about education for peace or conflict management, is important to come not just from politicians, but also from architects, from scientists, from communication managers, and so on and so forth. Our students are finishing their master's degree at universities of Tuscany and Umbria, and Rondine is working very closely with University of Siena, and since 2017 is offering its own master's degree in conflict management and humanitarian action. This is important to underline because Rondine throughout the years has been studying the method apply to the work with these young people, and of course working with different universities in Italy in order to, let's say, see is there a scientific basis for the work done, and since 2021 we also have published the book Rondine Method, where whoever gets a chance to read it can learn more about the scientific part of the work. I would like to end my presentation by again reminding all of us that our current work of Rondine is very important, because as I have mentioned at the beginning, I strongly believe this is a place where smart and peaceful future leaders are being educated and taught. Our work is significant. Our work is recognized, visible, and important more and more over the world. But to be truly potent, we of course need allies. And I would like to thank once again to Renata and Rotary for giving us the place tonight, and of course for recognizing our work and being an ally and partner on various things throughout the years.
Thank you so much, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Have I used all of my time? Yeah. If anyone has any questions, I also will leave my email in the chat, and I will be here for another 15-20 minutes.
So now we're going ahead with the short film from the St. Joan of Arc Catholic School.
He's 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with spears. He's all of 31 and he's only 17. He's been a soldier for 1,000 years. He's a Catholic, a Hindu, an atheist, a Jain, a Protestant, a Baptist, and a Jew. And he knows he shouldn't kill, and he knows he always will. Kill me for you, my friend, and me for you. And he's fighting for Canada. He's fighting for the Russians, and he's fighting for Japan. And he thinks we'll put an end to war this way. And he's fighting for democracy and fighting for the Reds. He says it's for the peace of all. He's the one who must decide who's to live and who's to die. And he never sees the writing on the walls. But without him, how would Hitler have condemned him at Dachau? Without him, Caesar would have stood alone. He's the one who gives his body as a weapon to a war. And without him, all this killing can't go on. He's the universal soldier, and he really is to blame. But his orders come from far away no more. They come from him and you and me. And brothers, can't you see? This is not the way we put an end to war. He's 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with spears. He's all of 31 and he's only 17. He's been a soldier for 1,000 years. He's a Catholic, a Hindu, an atheist, a Jain, a Protestant, a Baptist, and a Jew. And he knows he shouldn't kill, and he knows he always will. Kill me for you, my friend, and me for you. And he's fighting for Canada, he's fighting for France, he's fighting for the USA. And he's fighting for the Russians, and he's fighting for Japan. And he thinks we'll put an end to war this way. And he's fighting for democracy and fighting for the Reds. He says it's for the peace of all. He's the one who must decide who's to live and who's to die. And he never sees the writing on the walls. But without him, how would Hitler have condemned him at Dachau? Without him, Caesar would have stood alone. He's the one who gives his body as a weapon to a war. And without him, all this killing can't go on. He's the universal soldier, and he really is to blame. But his orders come from far away no more. They come from him and you and me. And brothers, can't you see? This is not the way we put an end 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with spears. He's all of 31 and he's only 17. He's been a soldier for 1,000 years. He's a Catholic, a Hindu, an atheist, Jain.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thank you. Beautiful participation from the Interact, starting in their peace, love for peace at an early age. Now it's my pleasure to introduce RI Director Patrick Shisanga. Patrick has started his career, I'll say his career with Rotary since he was an interactor. So with no further ado, if we can listen to Patrick, who has a message for us, RI Director.
Esteemed members of Rotary International and the intercountry committees, today I am honored to speak to you about the Rotary Intercountry Committees, or ICC. Firstly, let's delve into the significance of the ICC. The ICC serves as the connective tissue that binds Rotary programs across the continents. Through its effective strategies, ensures that opportunities, be it humanitarian or service projects, educational, cultural, or friendship exchanges, or peace-building efforts, resonate and reach every corner of the globe using our members and their Rotary clubs. One of the most remarkable aspects of the ICC's work is its role in fostering liaison between continents and exchanges. I want to take a moment to commend the Canadian district governors for their unwavering support of ICC initiatives in Africa. The partnerships that have been forged between Canada and countries like Uganda, Nigeria, Southern Africa, and Egypt exemplify the spirit of international cooperation and solidarity that defines Rotary. These collaborations not only facilitate exchange of resources and expertise, but also foster enduring friendships and mutual understanding across borders. Rotary's commitment to peace building is ingrained in our DNA, stemming from its founding principles of goodwill and humanitarian service. As Rotarians, we have a unique opportunity and a responsibility to be catalysts for peace in our communities and beyond. We can accomplish this by promoting education, fostering economic development, and advocating for conflict resolution through peaceful means. One of the key ways Rotary promotes peace is through its flagship peace program, the Rotary Peace Fellowship. These fellowships provide individuals with the opportunity to pursue academic studies or professional development related to peace and conflict resolution. By equipping these individuals with the knowledge and skills to address conflicts, Rotary is fostering a new generation of peace builders who can make a tangible difference in their communities and beyond. Rotary's commitment to peace extends beyond its own programs. Rotary clubs often collaborate with local and international organizations to implement peace-building projects. These partnerships allow Rotary to leverage its resources and expertise, amplifying the impact of peace-building efforts. In addition, Rotary's dedication to peace is evident in its support for initiatives that address the root causes of conflict. By addressing these underlying issues, Rotary is laying the groundwork for sustainable peace and development. This is where the ICC becomes a critical resource. Rotary clubs twin and work together and are deeply embedded in communities around the world, allowing them to understand local dynamics and tailor their peace-building initiatives accordingly. Rotary's community-based approach to peace building ensures that its efforts are both relevant and effective. Rotary ICC members here in Canada, in Great Britain and Ireland, in Taiwan, or in any other countries around the Rotary world, use their network to tell your story, the story of sustainable solutions and investment in making a difference. In conclusion, allow me to observe that the Rotary Intercountry Committee plays a vital role in advancing Rotary's mission and action plan of peace, fellowship, and service. Through its efforts to connect continents, foster cultural understanding, and promote global cooperation, the ICC embodies the spirit of Rotary at its finest. As Rotarians, let us rally behind the ICC's initiatives, amplify its message, and work together to build a better world for future generations to come. I wish you a very, very, very successful outing here in Canada.
Thank you so much. And we'll quickly hear from a Peace Fellow by the name of Nahla, telling us about her experience. If we can share this, that will be awesome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nahla. I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow, and I'm very happy to be participating in the conference with you. I want to give you first a background about myself. I'm from Cairo, Egypt. I studied economics and political science, and then I studied gender and development. And I've been working in the nonprofit field for almost 9 years now. I worked in different NGOs and with UN agencies, mainly in the field of education and training. And a big chunk of those years were dedicated to serving refugees in Egypt, either through education or capacity building in different areas. And I want to share with you some things that were very remarkable during this journey. First, 2 ways that I really learned about peace. The first way was through the community meetings and the community visits that we used to do. So we learned, for example, about the genocide in Rwanda in the lecture room. But once we got there, it was very different, because we can sit in a classroom and say that the genocide was terrible and that 800,000 people were killed in 100 days during this genocide. But when we actually went to Rwanda, it takes us just one meeting with one of the survivors to understand the intensity of this genocide. All it takes is talking to one person who lost their parent or their children or a home to shift our perspective completely and to turn these numbers that we always hear about into a reality of people suffering. So meeting these people and meeting the communities after the reconciliation and see how they made peace together as a community and how the government supported this peace, for me, that was an eye-opener completely. One more thing that I learned from the program is really the definition of peace. So when I went there, I thought I didn't know anything about peace and that I never worked in peace building, but I was surprised to see that that's not true, and that peace is not just the absence of war. And I learned about the concept of positive peace. And I realized that the work that I've been doing in the development field is very close to peace, especially when we work in an education project or in a training project and build the capacity of someone or support their education or their livelihoods. That is building peace. When I came back from Uganda, I started thinking, how will I integrate what I learned into my work? And 2 years ago, I started my social business next to my work in development. And this social business is an online platform for buying and selling and donating used books. And I thought a lot about this business and its mission and vision and how I can integrate peace into that. And this is when the idea of my social change initiative became clearer to me, which is Books for Peace. This is my initiative. Books for Peace aims at building libraries in refugee community schools in Egypt. So identifying this as a vulnerable community with minimal resources, I went to some of these schools that I had previously worked with before early in my career, and I discussed with them the potential of building them a library out of the used books. And we did. We called out for donation campaigns, and we received a lot of used books from the host community in Egypt. And we built this library at the school, and we also trained the refugee teachers on how to use stories to teach young kids, early grade students, empathy and tolerance and acceptance through fiction. And it was a very rewarding project. And in general, it made me always think that peace is a cross-cutting theme that we can integrate in any project, especially in development projects, as long as we have this lens and this dimension while working on a project. And finally, I just want to say that I've spent my entire life thinking, where is peace on the planet? And now more than ever, we live now at times where there's a lot of, let's admit it, we're just not very close to peace as we would like as a community, and especially in the region I come from, in Africa or in the Middle East. And we keep asking ourselves, where is peace? But I believe now that peace is something that we create and not something that we find. And I try to create peace, and I believe that everyone can do that. I believe that we can create peace in our communities, in our workspaces, in our families, in our friends. We can do that as long as we always stand up for justice and for equality, because justice paves the way to peace. So I remind myself that every day, and I call upon all of you to always speak up and to always call for justice, as this will lead to the peace that we want. Thank you very much, and peace be upon you all. I wish I was there again, but please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, and I would love to connect with you further.
Well, thank you for a lovely message from Nahla. Renata?
Yes. Another short message from the school. It's going to be an interview.
Just leave everybody else alone and just mind your own business. So paz, amor eterno, y déjame en paz.
Peace means getting along, loving each other, respectful of each other, giving each other the opportunity to be themselves. And basically that's it, just get along.
Peace means to me like being kind to other people, to others, like especially forgiving, not for the person, but for my own peace of mind, my conscience, la paix.
Peace means you have strong faith to God and you have inner love to someone and to anybody else, Yes, kapayapaan. That means peace in Tagalog, kapayapaan.
What does peace mean to me? When I think of peace, I think of mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical harmony.
What does peace mean to you?
Peace means to me that everyone is able to live in a safe environment and everyone's free to do as they choose.
Can you say peace in another language?
Pace.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see that. Renata?
Yes, now we have Father Gianni Carparelli, who sent us a small video from Italy. He resides in Italy right now. Father Gianni Carparelli operated in many different countries between Brazil, Germany, and Canada, where he founded a therapeutic initiative of Caritas Project in Toronto.
Can I say about peace? I should say instead brothers, sisters, because we share the same dream, peace in the world. As long as the word peace will remain a word in our mouth and in the mouths of a political or even religious leaders or preachers, peace will remain an increasingly faded word. So what? You would probably say, let's not exalt in poetic words about peace. Peace is not built by beautiful words, but that remain words. Peace is not just a speech or a prayer. It's built leader by leader through words sometimes, but mostly through actions. And this is for me the meaning of harmonizing hearts and hands for peace. As you said, it's marrying in a spiritual sense our desire for peace with a coherent life dedicated to building it. What do I do every day to build peace in my life and in my relationships with the people? Do I respect nature and others? Do I welcome those who must struggle to live? Do I respect and accept the differences? If I do not do this, my beautiful words are just empty chatter. If I do this, even in the simplest ways, I am instead building peace in my heart, in my hands. And what about prayers for peace? Will someone powerful intervene and throw seeds of peace everywhere? I do not think so. I have to be the prayer of peace. I have to be the smile of peace. I have to be the welcoming heart and hand for peace. I have to be as respectful, honest, and have as much integrity as peace requires. I have, you have, you who are now listening to me, you have, again, I have, we have to be together, ready to change our life. This is the help we ought to receive from prayers. We pray God or our saints because our faith sees in their life's journey what we have to do and how to do it. But we have to walk that journey, which is our journey too, according to what we believe. Again, my friends, we are to be the answer to our prayers. Do not pray to find the answer. Let us be at the same time the prayer and the answer with our life. And now I say thanks to you. Merci, muchas gracias, obrigado, toda, shukran, shishi, dan, and finally, grazie a tutti voi.
Beautiful words, and thank you so much. And thank you for being with us and for being a hope of harmonizing hearts and putting our hands together for peace. Thank you, each one of you, and I hope that you will have a lovely evening. Our district governor had to leave because I had another commitment. So with this, I leave you to have the rest of the evening and with peace and harmony. And thank you for every one of you. Thank you.